Morning, everyone. Just remain standing while the Mayor's chaplain says a prayer. Thank you.
Neighbour is ourselves. With this in mind, we pray that the city councillors will conduct their business with dignity, respect and humility. Through God's guidance, may they remember that the citizens of Preston have elected them for the purpose of working for the good of the city and not their own. May they listen without interrupting, acknowledge good arguments, be prepared to concede points and exercise their civic duty to the best of their ability. This we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Please be seated, everyone. Item 1 on the agenda, Mayor's announcements. There are no plans for a fire alarm test. If you hear the alarm, please leave the building by the nearest exit. Please ensure mobile phones are switched off or on silent. I'll give you a few seconds to check it. Restrooms are located on all floors, but please ask a member of staff for details should you require one. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will eventually be loaded onto the Council's YouTube channel. Can I please remind all members that whilst we can disagree politically, please remain respectful to each other whilst dealing with Council business. Now, members of the public, members and officers, you are reminded that under the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulations 2014, the press and public may film, audio record, photograph and use social media whilst the meeting is in progress for Part A items only. And as long as no disruption is caused to the meeting, anyone filming is asked to focus their attention on elected members rather than other visitors. Firstly, I have the sad duty to inform you of the death of a colleague, Kevin Goonan, who sadly passed away unexpectedly at the beginning of September. Kevin was the building, cleaning and parking assistant manager with over 20 years service at the council from November 1990 until his retirement in October 2011. Kevin's funeral was held on the 24th of September and the council was represented. My thoughts and condolences go to Kevin's family and friends at this sad time. I now have the sad duty to report on the passing of a former colleague, Stephen Parkinson, who played a key role in the council's communications team, joining in August 2000 as Public Relations Officer. He was promoted to Head of Communications in 2003 and in 2011 to Head of Policy, Communications and Performance before leaving the council in December 2016. Among Stephen's many achievements whilst at the council, he had a significant role in our successful bid for city status in 2002, as well as his work on the first Preston Guild of the digital era in 2012. Throughout his career in public service, Stephen always worked with dedication, skill and great energy. His former colleagues mourn his passing, and I send my personal condolences to his children, family and friends at this difficult time. Stephen's funeral is being held this afternoon, and a senior colleague, among others, will be in attendance. Can I now ask that we all stand for a minute's silence as a mark of respect to our former colleagues? Thank you, everyone. Before I carry on, I just wanted to mention Matthew Brown's been ill for over a week now. That's why he's not here. And also, I've been informed this morning that Councillor Riseback has had to go to the northeast. His brother died suddenly, I believe. That's the only details we have. Now, on the 7th of October, we mark the first anniversary of the horrendous attack by Hamas on Israel that led to the deaths of over 1,200 people in Israel and the capture of many hostages, with over 100 still in captivity or unaccounted for. We recognise the significance of this attack upon the people of Israel. We recognise too the yearning demand of the Palestinian people for their own state. I hope all in our city can unify in support of a peaceful two-state solution that provides lasting security for both Israel and a Palestinian state. The desired objectives of the United Kingdom government alongside the United Nations. We grieve too for the tens of thousands of Palestinians killed in Gaza over the last year. As the region appears to be on the brink of an all-out conflict, I echo the Prime Minister's call for all parties to the current conflict to step back from the brink. I am confident that we in this chamber all seek a peaceful and just outcome for all the residents of what many of us refer to as the Holy Land, a place held sacred by all the three Abrahamic faiths, thank you, Christianity, Islam and Judaism. We pray for peace for the region and its peoples. Oh, I've just said this. Now the leader cannot be with us today because he is unwell, so I send my best wishes to him for a speedy recovery. On a lighter note, I have a plaque to award and some certificates which have been awarded as part of the Lancashire Best Kept Village competition. Bear with me. I attended this on Monday afternoon in West Bradford, and it's Lancashire Best Kept Village competition. So rather than them posting them out, I collected any that were relevant to Preston. So, and I thought either the councillors for the wards involved can take them, or I'll take them at some point. But I've got Tanterton runner-up, urban community, Ingle winner, urban community. I've got highly commended cricket ground or tennis club, Broughton and District Club. Highly commended sheltered accommodation. That's the Watermills at Broughton. It's a gateway development. Winner shop, Barton Copper Kettle. Winner pubs and restaurants, Broughton Italian Orchard. I thought if I took that one, I might get a free meal out of it, but you know. And Coomera, which is the village past Whittingham, and that's highly commended as a hamlet. Goosner and Whittingham, highly commended medium village. Lancashire Best Kept Village competition, highly commended playing field, Goosner Village Green. And highly commended hotels, Barton Manor Hotel. So after council, if any of the relevant councillors come to the chamber, they can take these and deliver them themselves. I would have thought that would be better than me taking them. And I've also got a plaque, urban community class 20 for Ingle. Okay. This is the first plaque they've made out of recycled plastic. They used to make them out of aluminium, and they were £425 each. They press them and etch them. This is 25 quid, so when it becomes unusable, you can replace it. So if you want to, if you, I thought the relevant councillors pick up those, because it's like Ingle, Preston Rural North, Preston Rural East, and sort of areas. Okay, don't like going up there too often. Just now, and a very, very important note. On the 4th of December, we have carols in the chamber in here. So I expect to sell 100 and odd tickets. So please, you've probably been made aware of it already. All your families and friends can come. Don't forget, spend well. And there'll be some good wine and mince pies to share out. Thanks for that. Now, depending how we progress today, I may adjourn to take a short comfort break, but we will see how we proceed. Item 2. Are there any declarations of interest? Can members indicate if they have any disclosable pecuniary interests or personal and prejudicial interests in the items being discussed on the agenda? I'll have to declare mine. On the motion on winter fuel allowance, I was in receipt of it last year. My intention is not to vote on this motion, but still, so I can still remain and chair the debate, right? The other thing is, we need to have at least 50% stay in here. So even if you make a declaration, you can still take part if you choose to. Okay? That's the legal ruling. Okay, yeah, so we want to make sure we have enough people in here to remain in here to vote on it, so I don't think you can go and get a brew early. Okay. Sorry, declarations. Councillor Iqbal. Thank you. Item 13. Sorry, who's next? Councillor Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like you, I was in receipt of the winter fuel payment last year. Winter fuel. Another motion. Yeah, that's it.
Councillor Iqbal. No. Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Winter fuel, personal interest. Thank you.
Councillor Wise.
Winter fuel, personal interest, but I do intend to vote on the matter.
Councillor Brooks.
Winter fuel, personal interest.
Thank you. Councillor Guys.
Thank you. I need to declare an interest in item 8 because one of the persons who has been renominated as a parish councillor for the Standards Committee is known to me. I serve on the same parish council. I consider the interest prejudicial and I'll be leaving the room.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's item 13, the winter fuel allowance. I was in receipt of it last year. Thank you.
Councillor Peake.
Item 13, I've been in receipt of winter fuel allowance for a number of years now. I've been advised by officers that I do not need to leave the chamber for the debate, but I will not be voting on the debate.
Thank you. Is that everyone? No more declarations? Item 3 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of August 2024. Are members happy that I sign the minutes as a correct record? Thank you. Item 4 is questions from members of the public, and I am pleased to say that we have received 3 questions. The first question is from Mr. McFarlane, and a copy of his question is included in your agenda pack. Unfortunately, Mr. McFarlane is unable to be with us today, so I will ask his question of Councillor Rawlinson as the Cabinet Member for Resources. On the 30th of September, residents across Preston would have been surprised to find that their direct debit council tax payments had been taken a day early. While communications from the City Council attempted to brush this off as a minor error, for many who would have needed these funds on that day, this mistake will have caused significant inconvenience and unnecessary hardship. There will be many people who will now be anxious about monthly council tax payments being taken by direct debit on the wrong date, possibly left with insufficient funds in their account to cover payments taken otherwise than in accordance with the payment schedule agreed with the council. In the interest of the Nolan principles of accountability and openness, can the council please update Preston residents as to the reason why these council tax payments were incorrectly taken early, and what steps the council is taking to ensure this error will not occur again in the future? Councillor Rawlinson, do you wish to respond, please?
Thank you. So a lot of you may have seen this on social media that day. Obviously, it shouldn't have happened. We apologise to anyone that it's inconvenienced or caused problems for. We attempted to contact everyone that we could, that we had contact details for, to tell them it had happened. We're still working with a few people. Obviously, the impact on the people who were left short of money that day is a major impact on them. Overall, the number of cases that we're talking about, it was a fairly small impact across the city, but we fully understand the concerns of people like Mr. McFarlane and the effect it had on them on that day, and we're doing everything we can to help them with that situation. We are looking at processes. We're going to put a new process in place so that it can't happen again. It was actually a human error, which, you know, we're all human. It can happen. I'm kind of glad it wasn't an IT error. You know, we pay a lot of money for the IT systems. So we really are making sure it can't happen again. It was very unusual. And as I said, we will happy to work with anyone who was affected.
Thank you, Councillor Rawlinson. Now that concludes this question, and an emailed response will be sent to Mr. McFarlane. The second question is from Mrs. Troner, and a copy of the question has been circulated. Mrs. Troner is with us today, and I now invite you to direct your question, Mrs. Troner, to Councillor Akhtar. Sure, we're out of...
Oh, just keep it there, right? Okay, good morning again. I'm aware that numerous faith groups in Preston and Lancashire wrote to Councillor Brown in support of twinning with a town in both Israel and Palestine. These were not mentioned by anyone at the last committee meeting. I've listened very carefully to Councillor Akhtar's speech in the last committee meeting about friendship with a Palestinian town. You said that there has to be a political or diplomatic solution, understandably. You said that you would even favor a friendship with an Israeli town, provided such a town can be found which is committed to a two-state solution. And I assume that all the councillors here are aware that Israel either offered or agreed to plans of a two-state solution in 1937, 1947, 1967, 1978, 1993, 2000, and 2008, and was endorsed by Prime Minister Netanyahu in 2014. Israelis, you see, are eternally optimistic in their hopes for peace, even though for decades there have been calls for its annihilation. My question is, applying, sorry. My question is, applying the same criteria to friendship, oh, sorry, can't see, with a Palestinian town, with democratically elected town leadership in the Palestinian territories, are you as equally committed to a peaceful, political, democratic, diplomatic solution based upon a two-state solution? If you do not have one immediately in mind, how do you propose to set about finding one? That's the end of my question. That's it.
Oh, no. Councillor Akhtar, do you want to come in on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is unusual
Sorry,
for...
Councillor, just a second. Councillor Khan.
I will come in after.
I'm happy to
Certainly.
explain that.
Yeah.
It is unusual for a backbencher to be asked a question in full council in this way, but I understand that...
Councillor Akhtar, can you go a bit slower so we can hear? You seem to get going a bit quick. Please.
As I was saying, it is unusual for councillors to get a backbench councillor rather to get a question like this in full council, but I do understand the context in which the question has been asked, and I think it's entirely valid based on my comments in the previous full council chamber, and therefore I'm happy to, of course, be held accountable for my comments and my views. My views are very much mainstream views. They're internationally accepted standards in terms of what is going on, and I always find it very curious when people quote Netanyahu as somehow a partner for peace. And I think the framing of this, with respect to you and the question that you've asked and the community or groups of people that might support that view, isn't simply what is simply one that's not supported by international law or standards or the UN. And that's my bottom line. I went to the occupied territories. I worked in Gaza in 1999 through to 2000. So I know I'm very familiar with the land and the region and the peoples of the country, of countries rather, the state of Palestine, but also the state of Israel. Absolutely, there ought to be a two-state solution. There is only a diplomatic and peaceful solution that will help. You cannot bomb your way to peace. It is simply not possible. Sadly, however, in order to achieve a two-state solution and a peaceful resolution, you need partners for peace. And I'm afraid of that there is a great lack, particularly in the state of Israel, which actually is the occupying power, which does have all the cards. You can disagree with me all you like, but the World Court, the International ICJ in April this year ruled that the occupation, Israel's occupation of Gaza, the West Bank and East Jerusalem is illegal, remains illegal, and does not need, and there has to be no need for a negotiated two-state solution to respect the state of Palestine, which should have been created on the 1967 borders. That's what the UN argues. That's what the World Court reinforced in July this year. It's really important that we respect international rule of law. In that regard, coming back to the questions of, do we create and how do we find, this motion really was about partnerships for peace in communities, and so I'm not necessarily here to fix a global problem in the Middle East. That's not a little bit above my pay grade. I can offer you an opinion and remind you what the World Court has said. I can also remind you what Netanyahu himself has done. You rightfully quote, and the one thing we learned in politics that you don't just listen to what politicians say, you look at what they do. It's the deeds that count. And post Netanyahu coming home, from after the Oslo Accord, when Netanyahu first came to office, he trashed the Oslo Accords. And then when he second time he came into office around 2009, he did a famous speech at the Ilan University where he literally set out conditions that would make it impossible for the existence of an independent Palestinian state. That is Netanyahu's record. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to trust me on that. That's his own words, his own deeds. And probably the person who knows him best is his own dad, I guess. And even his dad, who's got a very dodgy reputation in terms of what he's done and how he's done it, in 2011, sat next to Netanyahu in an interview and described how his son was going to create the harshest possible conditions that would never be tolerable to the Palestinians in order for them to be able to accept the term that Netanyahu was creating. That was back in the 1990s, in the 2000s. Let's talk about 2024. January this year, my last point, and I'll end here. Earlier this year, Netanyahu, much to the ire of his dear friends and fellow genociders at the United States, stated that he would never allow a Palestinian state to be created post the genocide he's committing in Gaza. And that is the reality. The reality is that Netanyahu has been elected multiple times. His far-right government has been elected into office, and remains in office to commit genocide. And, that is a terrible tragedy for the Palestinian people. It is a terrible tragedy for the Israeli people. It is a terrible tragedy for the global community. And I understand that there's pain and hurt from colleagues who have friends, family, allyship, whatever it is, kinship with those two countries and those two peoples right around the world on both sides. Ultimately, everyone wants peace. But in order for peace to prevail, you have to have partners who will, in their words and deeds, commit to a two-state solution. And Netanyahu is not that partner. He's not that partner. He won't do it, and nor will his cabinet of extremists. Thank you.
I didn't
Just a
hear-
minute, Mrs.
Oh, sorry.
Trona, please. Councillor Khan, did you want to come in regarding
Yes, Mr Mayor.
equally committed to a do you have a town immediately in mind? Is that what you're going to mention?
No, Mr Mayor, I think it's important that as part of the question is about how the council is considering a friendship arrangement. Started the friendship arrangement with a town in Palestine. Obviously, the question is asking about a town in Israel. So I think if I could please, I would like to respond to that part of the question to give a view of the local issue, what the council is doing locally with this arrangement. So it may take a few minutes. I do want to cover a bit of an overview, right? Thank you. Thank you for your question, Amy, for this. I think I must remind people that this council has always and will always strive for dialogue, peace and friendship. As the conflict unfolds, impacts on our residents, very much so. We have acted in good faith in trying to recognise the pain on all sides, while calling for a ceasefire and working forwards, building a peaceful solution. And that is what we've been wanting. And we've shown that in many ways in asking for a ceasefire. Our extension of the hand of friendship to those suffering is a gesture which seeks to build bridges, and we have set out our commitment to explore friendship to those affected on all sides of this conflict. And if you recall, I did say that at the last council meeting when this particular question was asked. We will consider each request on its own merits and seek to build trust and tolerance locally. I will not be drawn on the aspects of arrangements now, as I believe this is a conversation which should take place in good faith as part of a constructive dialogue which seeks to build bridges, not seek further division. And I would like to say that we have started that dialogue. We were the first council that invited the Jewish leadership to come and speak to our members. So that was a massive stride and a stride for this council towards peace and to listening to our communities and building those bridges. I will continue to say that I bore the loss of innocent lives on all sides. Our mayor has marked the 1-year anniversary of the horrendous attacks on the 7th of October. And I echo his words. I also cannot ignore or fail to condemn the disproportionate numbers of innocent lives being lost in Gaza and now in Lebanon. So I reiterate our belief that diplomacy, not violence, is the way to achieve peace, stability. I call on all those who are active in the faith communities locally to work with us constructively to build bridges in our communities. I commend those who are brave enough to open their doors for constructive conversations, which build understanding and connection locally, and call on those who seek to bring further division in our communities to come round the table and talk. So I would also like to just say that we have yet to find a town in Palestine. Due to the conflict, we have not been able to do that. We have gone through a national organisation, and we will do the same, go through an organisation, and we will seek that information from the Jewish leadership, from Mark Levy, when the time is right. So you can rest assured that we will be having that dialogue, but the time is not right at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mrs. Trona, would you like to come back? Yeah. Do you have a supplementary question, please?
Second question. Okay. Quite fitting, actually, for the last. So thank you, Nuita. Also, sorry, Councillor Khan. Councillor Akhtar used the much repeated term genocide to describe Israel at the last committee meeting and at this committee meeting. In 10 years, there have been 470,000 to 610,000 violent deaths in Syria, the second deadliest conflict of the century. Entire cities have been razed, and there are countless refugees. I don't think I ever heard Preston councillors mention the word genocide. Russia attacked the Ukraine. In the 2 years since, over 100,000 people have died. There are countless refugees and destroyed cities. No mention of genocide. Councillor Akhtar will know that an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court is not proof of an allegation. He should also know—
Mrs. Trona, do you have a supplementary question?
I certainly do. I certainly have a question. He should also know that the International Court of Justice's ruling of plausibility of genocide was in order to determine whether it was the kind of allegation that they actually had power and responsibility to deal with, and was in no way a ruling or a judgment, nor was it a hearing to decide evidence about whether these allegations had taken place, or even whether it was likely or possible that they had taken place. So here's my question. In the event that the ICJ, or in any other international tribunal hearing, the evidence decides that these allegations are unfounded, what will Councillor Akhtar and the Labour Party do about the fact that he encouraged the spread of these allegations in his position and by making these public statements?
Thank you, Mrs. Trona, for the question. Councillor Akhtar, you can speak for yourself, but you can't speak for the Labour Party.
I'm absolutely going to speak for myself, yeah. And I'm going to keep in mind the good advice that your vicar said this morning around being diplomatic and compassionate. But let me be really, really clear. There is a genocide going on in Gaza right now. Every week, a classroom full of children have been murdered by indiscriminate bombing, bombs supplied by the United States, funded by the United States, in order for the government of Israel, the extremists sitting in that government of Israel, to continue bombardment of Palestinian people in order to exterminate them. That is what genocide is about. You can disagree all you like. The UN Special Rapporteur, Francesca Albanese, has said as much herself. Every single institute, the Lemkin Institute, which deals with genocide, said this is a textbook case of genocide. The ICJ World Court in July this year confirmed that the actions of the State of Israel as an occupation needs to end, and that it's oppressing, in fact, human rights of the Palestinian people. Time and time again, evidence after evidence tells us, points to us. Just this week, I watched people in a hospital setting on an IV drip burning to death live. I watched their hands. We all have probably seen the pictures. That is the actions of a genocidal state. Now, let me be clear. What's the difference between a genocidal state and a targeted intervention to assassinate, for example, those extrajudicial killings, an individual? We've seen the State of Israel claim, and indeed it took out Nasrallah in Beirut a couple of weeks ago, it claims that it has intelligence on every single person that it needs to target. But it doesn't matter about the collateral that it causes. We're looking at Jabalia, a refugee camp in northern Gaza at the moment, literally being wiped off the floor. We're seeing now reports of tanks with self-detonators. So they send tanks into areas, no obvious reason, they detonate them, the Israelis this is. Time and time again, we're seeing evidence, and just this week, Israel announced, of course, that it wants to clear the whole of the north of Gaza. 400,000 people have got to relocate to where precisely? You've bombed everywhere else, Mr. Netanyahu. Where do you want these people to go? That is the actions of a genocidal state, and I'll eat my hat if it isn't found to be genocide. It is genocide. Everyone says it is, in terms of the experts. I appreciate you don't agree with that, and that's fine. That's your opinion. You're entitled to it. But Israel is isolated, and rightly so. My solution to that is boycott them, sanction them, and stop selling arms to Israel. Stop supplying intelligence and armory and weaponry to Israel, because what that's doing is, it's not just complicity, it is being part of a genocide against the Palestinian people, and they are being genocided. And what we're seeing in Lebanon is not too far off, because Netanyahu said exactly the same things too. So there we go. You know, you can disagree, it's fine with me, but yeah, we'll deal with it when we get there.
Thank you, Councillor Akhtar. Mrs. Troner, a copy of the response will be sent in due course, and I thank you for using this facility. The third question we have today is from Ms. Dabble, and again, a copy of her question is enclosed in your papers. Ms. Dabble, do you wish to address your question to Councillor Akhtar?
Morning to you. So my question to you, Councillor Akhtar, I heard your speech regarding the crimes of humanity in the war in the last council meeting on the 22nd of August 2024. Are you willing to come and meet the Jewish community in Preston, not big, and view the documentaries aired on Channel 4 and BBC? It's called One Day in October and Surviving October the 7th, We Will Dance Again, where Hamas, the terrorist organization, murdered, butchered, burned young people attending Nova, the peace festival, and also families sleeping in a kibbutz and raped Jewish girls, and shared the footage online for the world to see. 101 hostages are still kept in dire conditions in the tunnels of Gaza with food or medication. The atrocities committed by Hamas terror group and the Gazan civilians on that day seems like a distant memory. But for the traumatized Jewish diaspora, it's still very raw. For those of us with friends and family in Israel, we get daily updates on rockets fired by Hezbollah in Iran and how they have to hide in bomb shelters. So will you come and see us? If not now, when?
Thank you, Ms. Dabble. Councillor Akhtar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Dable, for the question. Look, a war crime is a war crime. What Hamas did on the 7th of October was a terrible, terrible atrocity, and it killed many 1,200 people or so. That is terrible, and it's to be condemned, rightly so. What we've seen in the aftermath of that, however, is many times worse. Every single day, as I said earlier, we've now seen more than 45,000 people murdered, more than 100,000 disabled or injured. War crime is a war crime. I condemn what Hamas did on the 7th of October. I absolutely condemn what the Israeli government has done since then. To your question, ordinarily, the politics of this place are such that my job is to serve my local constituents. I'm proud to have Jewish members of my community. I'm proud to have met my Jewish community as I do with other faith groups and so forth. If there's a member of the Jewish community in Tunging that wishes to speak to me, I'm more than happy to do so, happy to meet them. If it's a broader conversation around the Jewish community, then that's really sits under the gambit and the responsibility of the cabinet member for that. So that's really their Councillor Khan. That would be their responsibility and their purview to make sure that that happens and that's facilitated, however that she may deem that to be appropriate. On the question of watching the 7th of October, the One Day in October documentary, I know it's part of a trilogy. First part, the brilliant documentary maker who's made that. First part is absolutely on the attack on Israel on the 7th of October. But the other two are on the attacks on Gaza, and they're due to be out later in the year, I believe. I watched the documentary on Channel 4, so I have a clear view of that. But I've also watched, I'm not blind. I don't think anyone in this place is blind to what we've been witnessing every single day on our TV screens and our newspapers, on our social media platforms, the horrors that have come out. But let me also be really clear, to our Jewish community, there is a place for you in our community. We value you, you are respected. We understand that there is a global conflict. We understand that raises tensions. We understand that creates tensions in our community, and our responsibilities to help manage those tensions and reduce and you and I have spoken through other channels as well, and I hope that I reiterated where there's been instances which were unacceptable. I've acted and supported you in those spaces, and I will continue to do so. What our views on international affairs don't colour how we support each and every one of our community members locally. That doesn't colour it. And to all of our Jewish community, I'd say you are welcome. This is a city, this is a home for you, as it always has been, and will continue to be. I hope that helps. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Akhtar. Ms. Dabble, do you have a supplementary question, please?
Thank you for that. Yes, I've sent 3 emails and you've always responded to me about anti-Semitic graffiti. So thank you for that. You have done. Just my secondary question is linked to the first one, which is in the last 12 months, there's been 13,200 missiles from Gaza, 13,400 from Lebanon, 400 from Iran, 180 from Yemen, 60 from Syria. So instead of accusing Israel, who is defending itself on 7 fronts in this war, why don't you demand that the people who started this round of conflict should bring it to a swift end by stopping the rockets and by releasing all the hostages taken on the 7th of October, and then make peace in our own city in Preston and agree to enter into dialogue with the Jews of Preston. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dabble. Councillor Akhtar, do you wish to come back?
Of course. Look, 101 hostages, Israeli hostages still in Gaza. Yeah, absolutely. 10,000 Palestinian hostages since the war began, sitting in Israeli prisons, being raped, sodomized, and sexually assaulted by members of the Israeli armed forces. And interestingly, when I watched those horrible scenes in Sderot prison taking place, I also watched with great disgust as members of the Israeli government turned up to the gates of that prison to protest against the soldiers being arrested and prosecuted for the crimes that they have committed. Imagine. You talk about other partners in the war. Look, I'll come back to this again. I said it in the first question. I'll answer it to you again. July 2024, International Court of Justice ruled, the World Court, UN Court, ruled that the Israeli occupation is the problem. End the occupation, which the World Court has declared as illegal. Return to the 67 boundaries. You take away the oxygen that some of those extremist or resistance fighters, or as they might call themselves, would have to power their arguments. They lose all that power if we introduce the two-state solution and commit to a two-state solution. The problem is the government of Israel is not committed to that. That is the problem. And In terms of other regional actors, look, the war on Lebanon that Israel started, and Israel has made clear that it insists on continuing to occupy. Israel has this infatuation with Iran. I mean, I remember as far back as the Iraq War. I mean, consistently, that's a problem for Israel to deal with. That is not a problem that we can fix in Preston. It doesn't affect, I mean, you trying to get back to your first part of your question, your substantive question, it doesn't affect how we work with our communities locally. That is an external conflict internationally that's, they'll have to deal with, but we can work on what we can do locally. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Councillor Akhtar. Thank you, Ms Dable, for your questions. A response will be sent to you, will be emailed to you in the near future. Thank you. Now we will take item 5, which is the questions to Cabinet members, chairs of committees and representatives of outside bodies. Members are entitled to ask a question of any Cabinet member or chair of a committee within their portfolio or terms of reference, and only one supplementary question may be asked, provided it is relevant to the original question. We haven't received any written notifications for questions from members appointed to serve on outside bodies. If anyone has any questions to ask on the information items on the agenda, including the special urgency decisions, they should do so at this point, as another opportunity will not be given when we reach those items. Joe, put your hands up, please. Right. Mr. Brooks. Councillor Darby, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question, I believe, is to Councillor Hindle, but please, by all means, pass it on if it's better off directed to someone else. In December last year, at the second time of asking, thanks to Councillor Close, we passed a notice of motion regarding quiet fireworks. Obviously, we're just coming up to bonfire night at the moment. I was wondering what actions the council have taken to try and encourage quieter fireworks to be used in various displays around the city. The only firework display that I know of that has been actively advertised as using the quiet fireworks has been with the fire brigade. I don't know if any of the others have, but my question is, what action have we taken as a council to try and make sure that quiet fireworks have been promoted as far as possible?
No, I'd have to find out more, to be fair. I don't know the answer to that. I know that at the Encounter Festival, we definitely didn't. We chose not to because it was so expensive. Does cost more money, and if you go for the quieter ones, you can't have them going up high. So in that respect, that we decided not to, but we did, I believe, reach out to Mel so that she could I don't know, warn the people. Yeah.
Yeah, Councillor Close, you want to come in on it?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for your question, Councillor Darby.
Excuse me, Councillor, could you stand up, please?
As we approach bonfire night, it's also something that's been on my mind. For Lancashire Encounters, I knew there was going to be fireworks and asked the question, and apparently it's about where they are set off from. So you cannot set quiet fireworks off from the top of a building. I don't want to get too technical because I'll tie myself up in a knot. You can't set quiet fireworks off from the top of a building, and the encounter ones at the end of the festival are set off from the top of the building opposite the bus station. So what they did was to advertise the time that they would be set off and to keep it to a minimum of 10 minutes. And there was a significant difference this time with doing that in the feedback that I got from last year. For bonfire night, part of the problem is that lots of people in Preston will be buying fireworks. I applaud Lancashire Fire and Rescue in doing the quiet firework display. We've been working with the police and we brought it up at the PACT meeting the other night. They're trying to cut down on the illegal sale of fireworks to people under the age of 18. And that will stop some of that on the street firework kind of bombs. And the other thing is comms will hopefully send out those messages again saying, please take care, please think about pets, please try and use quiet fireworks. So I think in terms of the council, the only thing that I'm aware of now that Councillor's gone is that it will be in the comms. So I hope that helps. But thanks for the question.
Thank you, Councillor Close. You have a supplementary, Councillor
Yes,
Jarvie?
just very briefly. It's obviously a little disappointing to hear that we couldn't use the quiet fireworks for the Lancashire Encounter. The notice of motion was very clear that events that were put on by the council would use the quiet fireworks. Nonetheless, I absolutely understand that practical issues, and it was looked at and discussed. So I'm pleased for that. I hope the question then is that going forward, I hope that it will continue to be under consideration. So every time we do put on an event, we don't just assume that we can't do it, but it's in fact actively looked at every time, because of course technology moves forwards, and perhaps at some point we will be able to do it that way.
I should take that back to the team. I mean, to be honest, if we had loads of money, you could do fantastic displays with drones. And I mean, they're amazing and they're quiet and they're fantastic, but the price of it is just astronomical. So you're right, technology is moving on. Maybe prices and things like that will go down. So yeah, we can take it back to the team. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Hindle. Councillor McMahon, do you have a question, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a question for Councillor Rawlinson. If you could please give us an update on how things are going with the Guild Lounge.
Thank you. Yes, the Guild Lounge opened. Was it this month? It was just this month. I went to the opening event. It was really good. I'm really impressed with the way the officers have set it up, and it's smart, it's stylish, it's really practical. It seats is it 350 potentially. We've had over 200 in there on one event already. It's really good. I hope the councillors and the people of Preston support it until we find out what's going on with the theatres, and as soon as we know, obviously we can make bigger decisions. But the Guild Lounge is an excellent option in the meantime, and I want to thank the officers for bringing that online in the way they have, and please support it.
Is there a supplementary? Thank you. Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to Councillor Amber Afzal. Later in this meeting, there is a request to agree on an extraordinary council meeting to consider the Central Lancashire local plan. In order to do this, we must have sight of the proposed new planning policies, of which I believe there are over 30. During a recent meeting of the working group, we have been promised that the members of the group will receive those policies. We haven't yet received them, and I know they've been sent out. So it's important that we're able to scrutinise this very important piece of report before we go to this meeting. There are a couple of controversial policies, I would have said, and that we have no idea what the title of these 30+ policies are as yet. So we're going into this blind. It looks to me like a bit of an officer-led exercise, and I hope it isn't. I think we need to, everybody in this chamber needs to be able to sit and say they've actually looked at this before they go into the extraordinary meeting and say it's okay, because there are things that I think that need discussing. The other thing is we are, I believe, putting forward a certain amount of housing the target, changing the target from the government's target. And it's been said that if we get this report in by a certain date, we will stick to our target. But on the Conservative leaders WhatsApp chat, I've heard that the government are going to impose a target regardless anyway. So can you reassure me that we will get sight of these policies before this meeting, and that the information that I'm receiving is incorrect and that we can hold on to that 500 target if possible? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Firstly, we have the working group, which we have all parties a part of. Some may attend, some may not. I can't control that. During those meetings, we do discuss certain policies or locations and site options. Everything is discussed there. In terms of the policy list, policy list, that will be going out this week, in fact, with a date for a potential Teams meeting where we will select 10, 11 policies to go through at a time. And we can discuss, we can have conversations about any thoughts or comments per policy. And these will be taken back and reviewed. In terms of the housing figures, I was going to go into that later when we came onto that item, but I can briefly mention it now if you wish. The decision for this extraordinary council meeting has been taken because the Central Lancashire Local Plan is currently programmed for a decision in early 2025. The council has invested considerable time and expense in preparing this plan and are committed to seeing it reach the final stage under the current planning regime. In July this year, the government consulted on a number of proposed changes to the existing national planning policy framework, alongside changes to the standard method for assessing housing, which, if brought in as suggested, would require changes being made to the local plan and would impact the programme for delivery on the new local plan. At this time, it is not known precisely when the new NPPF will be published, but it is expected before the end of the calendar year, from which we will have a 30-day time period to submit and go out to Regulation 19 consultation, which is essentially the final stage of the review of the local plan. Therefore, to ensure we don't fall short of any new deadlines, we have requested this extraordinary council meeting to ensure that the decision can be made in time. Just going back to your first question about policies and will members be made aware and have sight of these policies, absolutely they will. We have in the past arranged, I specifically asked officers to arrange a all-member briefing about the local plan, what it's going to include and deadlines, etc. I'm not sure who attended those and who didn't, but we will be having another member briefing about the policies, and that will be going out to all the members on the working group. So please keep an eye out on your emails and do attend. Thank you.
Your supplementary, councillor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yeah, thank you for your answer. Very thorough, and it's what I expected. However, one of the things that I've noticed about this Central Lancashire local plan is that it appears to me that the whole plan is based on an area, as we know, South Ribble, Chorley and Preston. And I would have thought the intention when putting this plan together would be to have a common set of policies across the whole of the area. But would you agree with me that it seems to be that three authorities seems to have been making the plans in silos and not really looking at it as an opportunity to have a consistent plan across the whole of that area? And I think I have spoken to our Labour MP and she agreed with me that it should be it should be looked at as a plan across the whole area, not just a plan of three separate areas. So would you agree with me that this has been approached as a plan for three separate areas or as a whole?
I don't agree with that. We do have different demographics. We are very different. Oh, sorry, Preston, Chorley, South Ribble, we do completely have different needs. However, we are working very closely together to meet everybody's needs, to have policies that reflect all the different areas. and to support those communities that are in those areas. So I don't entirely don't agree with your comments.
Not again. You've had your supplementary, Councillor. Thank you for your response, Councillor Afzal. Next one is Councillor Landless, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not quite sure which cabinet members this is to be addressed to. It's either Councillor Lawrence or Councillor Bailey. It's on the subject of Avon Park Cafe. So I'll get you just to have a quick think. It's rather interesting because I was interviewing the other day. I run a community-run cafe in Broughton for my sins, and I was interviewing for a new manager. And one of the candidates came, and I said, "Oh, what have you done in the past?" She said, "Well, I work at Avon Park Cafe at the moment. I'm a supervisor, but I'm not working at the moment because the cafe doesn't really need me." And it just got me thinking. So I thought, well, I'm going to council meeting on Thursday. I'll ask a few questions about Avon Park Cafe. So my question's dead simple. Is there a long-term strategy or plan for what we're going to do with this I think it's rather a nice asset in Avon Park, but is there a long-term strategy for maybe stopping having to subsidise it so heavily each year, and that we maybe look to get another operator in to take it on lock, stock and barrel, and it ceases to be our financial responsibility? Thank you very much.
Councillor Bailey, yeah.
Yeah, I can take this question. Obviously, Councillor Rawlinson can add anything if he wants to. So yeah, I think obviously we took it back into our ownership. It's always been under our ownership. Obviously, we've brought it in-house to run it about 2 or 3 years ago. In terms of how we're going to run it, I do think there are some improvements we can make, and obviously we are putting a plan together, and that's something we'll be discussing at ONS, I think on the 1st of November. So I guess if further things will be discussed in ONS, but we are putting together like a long-term plan to make some improvements. So I do think there are some improvements that we could make towards that cafe. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Is there a supplementary? Thanks, Councillor Landless. Councillor Hull, you have a question, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to Councillor Valley-Wise as the Cabinet Member for Community Wealth Building. And I would just like to ask Councillor Wise if she could give Council an update on the Animate project that the Council is doing.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, Councillor Hull. The Animate development is due to be handed over by Maple Grove Developments to the Council and the tenants the week commencing the 28th of October, and it's on schedule and on budget. The Arc Cinema and Hollywood Bowl will start work fitting out their units immediately. They will be followed by the operators of the food hall and the restaurants. Soft landscaping and tree planting along the frontage will take place in November. Off-site works to improve Old Vicarage are on site. You must probably have seen them and are on schedule. And it's anticipated that the cinema will open in February 2025. Only 2 units remain to be let, and we hope to announce a new tenant on one of them very soon. I've had an update on the delivery of social value and up to the end of July 2024, which is very encouraging. I won't go through all of it because it's a lot, but just to pick out a few of them. Theme 1 is promoting training and employment. 44 jobs have been, with an average duration to date of 6 months, have been created, which is exceeding the target. Apprenticeship training on site, there's been 105 weeks, which again has exceeded the target. On theme 2, which is raising living standards, the workforce health and wellbeing, 30 toolbox talks have been delivered to the workforce on the issues of health and safety and wellbeing. And again, that's exceeded the target. On the theme of building the capacity of the voluntary and community sector, £73,584 on waste management services have been provided by a social enterprise. On theme for promoting equity and fairness, they've been promoting the benefits of trade unions, and the GMB learning poster is on display within Lancastrian House. And on the last theme, sustainability, waste has been diverted from landfill is 100%, which again has exceeded the target. Thank you for your question.
Councillor Hull, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Patel, do you have a question, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning. My question is for our Deputy Leader, Councillor Rawlinson. Can you please update Council on the evaluation and a combined authority for Lancashire? Thank you.
Thank you. So in Matthew's absence, I've been to a couple of meetings. The government appear to be ploughing on with the plans for a combined authority, which is dominated by the three unitaries. There is talk of more changes further down the line, but at the moment, that's how it seems to be. Obviously, district leaders are quite unhappy with that across the board, and there are likely to be representations coming forward about that from district leaders and requests for more seats at the table and changes to that model. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens, but we are very concerned, given that, you know, one of the main partners in that combined authority is Conservative-run Lancashire County Council, who have been woefully neglectful on infrastructure and transport, especially, and you know what's going to happen with housing and other things for that matter. So that's where we are. Some of the districts certainly want an elected mayor to have more powers to deliver for Lancashire, and that may be in the offing further down the line, but at the moment the districts will keep the pressure on to have a fairer outcome from the current plans.
Thank you, Councillor Rawlinson. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Patel?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Iqbal, your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for Councillor Hindle. Anna, could you please give us an update on the cultural program and the events taking place in the city? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Iqbal, for your question. Basically, I just want to give a quick overview of what's happened and what's coming up. So obviously we had the huge Radio 2 concert, and despite the heavy rain on the Sunday, the event was a fantastic success. We've had, as a council, lots of positive feedback. It attracted nearly 70,000 visitors over the 3 days, 13% of which were Preston residents. So obviously, a lot of people coming far and wide to our city. This is hot off the press, and an estimated total of money that was spent in our economy during the 3 days, which was around 5.3 million. The event supported 2,100 jobs in Preston over the 3 days. Then we move on the 21st of September and the 22nd, the weekend of the Encounter Festival. Again, it was brilliant weather and very well attended. I'm really proud of the team that works so hard to put on these free family events, which of course are supported by funding from areas such as the Arts Council. This year we had a new addition of a soul band and a bar on the flag market leading up to the parade and fireworks, which I feel worked really well. It provided an atmosphere of anticipation. Torchlight procession and firework finale was a huge success, attracting large crowds into the city centre from the early evening through to the late evening, which obviously helps the nighttime economy. So events coming up, obviously there's a reminder to everyone about Remembrance Sunday on the 10th of November, and it's always good to get as many councillors present as possible. And then there's a 2-minute silence on the 11th of November at the Cenotaph for Armistice Day. The Christmas light switch on is Saturday the 23rd, and again a free family entertainment on the flag marking. And there's going to be a return of last year's popular fire garden at Avon and Miller Park on Saturday the 7th and Sunday the 8th of December. Again, it's a free event, but as a reminder, you need to book a time slot, and some of these are already reached capacity. Can I remind all councillors to sign up to the Guild Lounge mailing list? You'll get updates, and extra fixtures are being arranged all the time, which is obviously good.
Thank you, Councillor Hindle. Councillor Bailey, did you want to come in on this?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
I didn't expect you to have one. Sorry, Councillor Iqbal.
Councillor Endel, Sunday's rain, I believe, talking to some people, they enjoyed the muddy puddles, but is the Moore Park going to be put back to as its original state? Any work been started or any proposal to do it?
Thank you. Yes, again, we've got an update on that. We've been working hard with the contractors to repair Moore Park. However, progress has been slowed down due to the poor weather conditions, making the surface too wet to work on. The park is being inspected today by our contractors to see if the planned aeration work can start this week. This will improve drainage and reduce compaction. Fertiliser is going to be added to boost the grass health. We're working with the BBC regarding the reinstatement of the rutted areas, and this work will be carried out when the weather and surface conditions allow. It's proposed to reseed the areas of grass in the spring, and they're more likely to grow well, and it's more likely to germinate. To ensure we have football provision, we've moved 2 of the pitches to an area closer to Garstang Road, and we're working on a 3rd pitch as soon as possible. But all the footpaths have been cleared of mud, and there are clear routes around the park, and we appreciate that users may feel that the restoration is taking longer than we would wish. However, we're working as swiftly and practically as possible to restore the park to its former state after what was an amazing event for the park and the city as a whole.
Thank you, Councillor Hindle. Councillor Bailey, did you want to add to it?
Yeah, I mean, Councillor Hindle obviously in the supplementary answer obviously made all the points that I kind of wanted to make in terms of the restoration of Moore Park. I guess maybe just to remind residents as well that most of the park is still in operation. So obviously if people want to use the skate park, the 2 play facilities, tennis courts, and utilise the cafe, then they're still able to do that. So there's still a lot of things to do on Moore Park, despite it not looking in the best state at this moment in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. You've had your supplementary, Councillor Iqbal. Councillor Brooks, did you have a question, please?
Yes, my question's Councillor Khan. I'm wondering if she could give us an update on the night shelter and how's that going, please?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Brooks. Firstly, if obviously it comes under homelessness and rough sleepers, nationally, what we've seen is an increase in homelessness. Obviously, there's different reasons for that due to the causes and the types and the type of provision that's provided by councils. What we've seen in Preston, we've also seen an increase, and this is also due to the release of early prisoners as well. Sorry, can you? Oh, can't help myself, can I? Yeah, so the night shelter, it's the funding that we received was from the Rough Sleepers Initiative. And we've been working on this for quite a number of months. Hopefully it will be opened as a nighttime provision by the end of October. The provision inside will provide, it's 12 to 15 bed space. There will be 2, I think it's 2 particular rooms for women, because mostly what we have is single men. And this is a bit of a pilot as well to see what the demand is. We know there will be a need, but then this was the best possible facility that we could have and we have provided. There will be 6 full-time workers. We will have volunteers with lived experience. People will be paid. The shelter's timing will be from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning, and it will come through a referral mechanism. So agencies, community organisations, or people working with the homeless, or see somebody and they know, it will have to be referred through. Obviously, there will be some screening that will take place as well. This is night shelters in place of the severe weather placement, which is called SWEP, which we have. So hopefully, as a council, we've provided a sort of robust, facility, some warmth. There will be washing areas facility as well there as well. So we just have to see how the demand and what further needs there will be. There will be a wraparound service as well in-house. Community organisations that offer support, like alcohol and drug services, will be allowed to come in and work with individuals. And I think it's that thing about working one-to-one and trying to ascertain how we can further help those individuals to move on. And as we know, with a lot of homeless people, it's very difficult to move people on because, as I said earlier on, it's the causes, what's caused them to be on the streets, and some of them do not want to take on the accommodation or the facilities that we're giving them. But hopefully, I think it's a big move, and we shall just see how it goes. Thank you.
Councillor Brooks, do you have a supplementary?
No, thanks. Really comprehensive answer. Thank you.
That concludes questions of cabinet members and chairs of committees. Moving on to item 6. This is is a report on achieving Preston's priorities mid-year review. The report was not available at the time the agenda was published. However, I have agreed to accept the report as an urgent item because the council needs to be updated and the data wasn't available at the time of publishing the agenda. Councillor Rawlinson, are you moving this report?
Yes, thank you. Now, the report just asks us to note the financial position, really, but obviously there's a lot of information in here. There's lots of detail on our huge programme of works for this city, a lot of which are not our core functions, but we choose to do them to deliver for this city where others might not be. You know all about those things, and they're all in here, so I'm not going to go through them all. One of the most important pieces of information in here is what's happened with City Deal, which is a huge achievement for this council, and our officers negotiating an extension to City Deal, which releases a lot of funds for this council, a chunk of new homes bonus that can fall into balances, and also securing the cash for Animate and the Harris, which we may have had to underwrite. There is evidence in here of all the house building, the council tax receipts that we're getting. That is helping us without a doubt. Obviously, increased house building can be controversial in places. We know that, and we also know that this government are asking for more, and we've had questions today, and obviously it's on everyone's mind, and we will move forward with that. But in financial terms, it's certainly helping us at the moment. Our investments are doing incredibly well. We did have a target for capital receipts to help smooth the borrowing for Animate. We didn't reach that target, but the investment returns are so much higher than we expected that we're able to fill that gap with those, and even put some into balances. Our reserves, on advice from auditors and even the peer review, our reserves and balances are higher than normal. We're being told to keep them like that. Obviously, there's lots of things we can spend them on, but you'll see the forecast. We normally go down to the minimum balances at the end of the forecast, and it's sat there with 5 million in it. So whether it works out that way, obviously, is another matter. The report also lists the risks we have to our finances, which is basically all our income streams are at risk. We don't know what business rates are going to be like, what the government are going to do with the settlement at this point. All the huge projects that we're delivering are a risk. We still want to do more on climate change. Even interest rates themselves are a double-edged sword because, you know, while we're getting the returns now, when we come to borrow, it's more expensive, of course. There is another aspect that we need to, well, we have started to think about, which is the legacy of austerity. So one of the first, just for example, one of the first savings that we made at the start of austerity was the parks capital budget. It was cut completely. So, of course, we've got underinvestment in that area for 10, 15 years. And we're going to have to look at that. Another example is this report mentions a new performance regime. A lot of those staff have gone, long since gone. We will need to backfill in more than one area if we possibly can, if we can afford to. So there's while the finances look slightly better, there's an awful lot to spend it on. When we get the other side of the £120 million capital programme, we need to think about those as we go forward too. Thank you.
We got a seconder for this report, please. Thank you, Councillor Hull. Do you wish to speak on this, Councillor Potter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for mentioning Tony Raisbeck and his condolences in your speech. I appreciate that. Tony's going through a lot at the moment, so I'm sure he would appreciate it. But no, thank you to Councillor Rawlinson for presenting this report. Obviously, we'll have no doubt robust debates and fun times at the budget in February. But you're right, City Deal has potentially. I'll wait, Mr. Mayor. It's okay. I assume I'm okay to go on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the council, the City Deal Mark II, or the revised deal that we've gone into, does provide a lifeline to this council, but we've seen news already this week of other councils in absolute dire straits, and Councillor Rawlinson was correct. There are lots of risks we have taken on, lots of risks that have cross-party we've agreed because we want to do right by this city, but the biggest risk is what happens with the government. What happens with local government settlement? What happens to councils up and down the country that are close to collapse? Now, we have had a lifeline, but the government is going to have to give local government not just a lifeline, but actually proper security of long-term financial. Otherwise, the fate of particularly lower tier councils such as our own will be very much in doubt. But we look forward to the budget, and no doubt the first Labour budget of the new government will throw lots of money towards local government, as you have for many years criticised the Tories for not doing. So we look forward to that.
Can we move to any more comments? Okay, can we vote on this, please? All in favour, please show. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 7 is a report on the appointment of 2 independent persons to the Standards Committee. Councillor Rawlinson, are you moving this report, please?
I shall move the decision at 2.1.
Is there a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Wise. Anybody want to speak on this? We'll go to the vote then. All in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 8 is reappointment of is a report on the reappointment of an independent person and 2 parish councillors to the Standards Committee. Councillor Rawlinson, will you be moving this report, please?
Again, happy to move the decision at 2.1, small 1 and 2.
Thank you. So have we got a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wise. Anybody wish to speak about this? Can we move to the vote, please? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Great. Item 9. Item 9 is a report on a request for an extraordinary council to consider the Central Lancashire Local Plan Regulation 19 stage. Councillor Rawlinson, will you be moving this?
Obviously, this has been discussed already and timing is everything and we need to set a date for this meeting.
Have we got a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wise. Anybody wish to speak on this? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 10 is a report on the changes to the political balance of committees. The report was not available when the agenda was published. However, I am accepting the report as an urgent one because it is expedient that the political balance is in place. Councillor Rawlinson, will you be moving this report?
I'll move it, and as required, the Labour Group will remove Councillor Nather from the Employment Committee and Councillor Coupland from the Licensing Committee.
Thank you. Is the report seconded? You seconding it, Councillor Potter?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm second it because obviously this is because of Councillor Little's by-election success in July, where Liberal Democrats have 2 extra places. So Councillor Rutter will be going on employment and I will be going back on licensing.
We all look forward to that, Councillor Potter. Thank you. Can we vote on this, please? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 11 is a report on a review and update of the Council's contract procedure rules. The report was unavailable when the agenda was published. However, I am accepting it as an urgent item because based on expected legislation that was not forthcoming, these interim arrangements need to be considered. Councillor Rawlinson, will you be moving this report?
So the report asks us to approve the revised contract procedure rules and approve any consequential amendments that may come up. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is legislation changes and coming out of Europe and various other changes to bring the council's procedure rules up to date.
Thank you. Anybody wanted to speak on this? Oh, have we got a seconder? Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Wise. Anybody want to say anything on this? We'll move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Item 12 is the notification of changes to the membership of committees. I know we've just done the rebalance of the parties. Are there any other changes to be reported? Councillor Rawlinson.
So we are taking Councillor Hindle off planning and replacing Councillor Hindle with Councillor Bailey. And in the reverse move, we're putting councillor Hindle as a substitute, taking councillor Bailey off as a substitute.
Thank you. Any other changes? Oh, thanks. Councillor 13, item 13 is a notice of motion submitted by Councillor Potter entitled Winter Fuel Payments Cut. Councillor Potter, you wish to move?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I would like to thank the Conservative group for their amendment. I think it was done in the spirit of which the original motion was written. I cannot say the same about the Labour amendment. I have privately and I will publicly say I disagree with its allowance actually happening in this chamber. The motion was a criticism of the government and its reckless implementation of a winter fuel cut, and it changes the motion to being in favour or in positive approach of what the government is doing. And thus, because I do not believe that we can get a fair hearing in this chamber, and I believe it is a wrecking amendment, I am withdrawing this motion from the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Item 14. Item 14 is the leader's report. Councillor Brown, do you... Oh, sorry. Councillor Rawlinson, do you wish to report on Councillor Brown's report?
I wouldn't even attempt to. I'm sure it speaks for itself.
Anybody, any comments on this report? It's only for noting. Thank you. Item 15 is special urgency decisions. However, there are none to report to this meeting. They're the under the line items, I believe. Item 16 is the date of the next meeting. The next ordinary meeting of the council will take place at the usual time of 2 p.m. on Thursday, the 19th of December in the Town Hall, Preston. Please make a note of the 4th of December, as I mentioned before, for all attending here for mince pies and carols. Okay. Now we need to consider passing the following resolution. That the public be excluded from this meeting during consideration of the following items of business on the grounds that there is likely to be disclosure of exempt information, which is described in the paragraphs of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972, which is specified against the headings to the item, and that in all the circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing it. Are you all happy to agree the exemption and move to Part B?